Hey everyone, I just wanted to touch base with you because some major changes are happening in the real estate industry, and I think it's important that you know what's happening and how that might actually affect you. Today I'm going to be speaking to buyers, and you may not be buying a home right now, but these changes are going into effect, quite frankly, August 17th is when nationally we all have to have this into effect. Here locally, we're actually going to be working on this effective August 13th. So just in 2 short weeks, legitimately some things that are going to be very different for you, not so different for us, but very different for you. And I think that's, it's here to talk about. So if you know somebody who is looking to buy a home, please forward this video to them because they need to know this. So here's what's going on. I know we've been talking over the last 9 months about the Burnett Sitzer lawsuit, and NAR settled that lawsuit back in April. And with that settlement came some major changes to how we as agents need to do things. And this one is specifically for buyers. First and foremost, buyers. You may have heard phrases like, well, you don't have to pay a buyer's agent. Buyer's agent is free to use, blah, blah, blah. The truth of the matter is, and this is part of the reason why the lawsuit happened, is that technically we weren't free to you. We always attempted to get paid by the seller. So if you were in West Michigan and you had a buyer's agency agreement, it would read something like, hey, you are obligated to pay 3%, but Mr. and Mrs. Buyer to me, but I am going to make every attempt to collect those funds from someone else. And if I can't collect from someone else, you're going to know ahead of time before seeing a house whether or not you want to proceed with that. The truth is that's not changing. So again, you buyer, we're always responsible to pay us. We were going to make every effort to collect from someone else, AKA most often the seller. And if that was the case that we couldn't collect, you were going to be given that option. That is still the same. So you're going to hear things like buyers are now responsible for paying their own fees. And the truth of the matter is you always were responsible for paying your own fees. But what I want you to know is that now sellers have the choice to not offer you your buyer's agent compensation. And so we as realtors are going to now have to check before we see any home with the listing agent whether or not the seller is going to be offering compensation. The other piece for sellers is that we used to be able to go onto the computer, yep, they're definitely going to offer me compensation, so I don't need to have that conversation with my buyer. That is going away. So one of the big changes is your realtor can no longer see if the seller is offering compensation to them. And so with that, we have to actually call the listing agent, get that information, find out for you, then present to you whether or not you want to enter a home based on what the compensation may be. And there's some structure things that may change, like either it's in the form of concessions, or maybe concessions being that the seller's paying a portion of your closing costs, or they're actually paying a percentage directly to a buyer's agent, or they're not at all. And again, you are going to be given the choice before entering a home whether or not you want to proceed with that home based on whatever they find out from the listing agent. But not only are we going to be doing that, that's changing. And the more important piece is once we find that information out and we have to present that to you, we're going to ask you to sign a form. NAR has said that before we so much as step foot inside a single house, you have to have a form stating that you understand how compensation works, how I'm seeking to get my compensation. You actually have to sign a buyer's agency form before you see a home. So meaning you have to hire your realtor ahead of knowing what they can and cannot do. And I know for me in my practice, prior, I would give you about 3 or 4 homes to see each so you can get a feel for how I work before I would actually ask you to sign that form. Today, or starting effective August 13th, I'm starting effective August 1st. Before we step inside a home, I'm going to ask you to sign that. And we're like, well, wait a minute. I like the idea of being able to interview you, Sarah, and see how you work and how you show a house and whether or not that truly works for me. I love that too. We have a form that'll allow it on a case-by-case basis, so meaning a house-by-house basis. And so maybe that is an option. And it's up to us when we have our buyer's consultation, that first meeting, to talk about what you're comfortable doing and what you're not comfortable doing. But do know the major change is before you set foot inside a house, you will have to sign something that you understand compensation, the ways that your buyer's agent could get paid, what you prefer, and a decision has to be made prior to that before you even so much as set in foot in the house. So that is the most important piece. If you have questions, I'd really love for you to reach out to me. Say, you know what, Sarah, this isn't making any sense to me. I appreciate that as well. So my phone number is 616-204-7896. I invite texts. I also invite emails, and you can email me at the number one redheadedagent@gmail.com. We'll talk more specifically. If you're across the country, I can't say what's happening in your neck of the woods exactly, but I can tell you that's what's going to be happening here in West Michigan. But I'm still happy to listen and answer any questions you may have. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.